we made it back to Friday. Welcome to Planet Earth, Mr. H, back from North Dakota. How you guys doing? Did you have yourself a fantastic week? I hope you did. And if you are anywhere in the southeastern U.S., Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, West Side, and East Tennessee, hey, our prayers are with you, and I hope everybody does something to help everybody there in those impacted areas. Do whatever you can. Every little bit helps, huh? In the meantime, hey, it's Planet Earth, and how you guys doing? Well, I was when I was at the airport over there in at O'Hare, waiting for my plane, Mrs. H and I was thinking about U.S. and India, how they both achieved independence, and they did it in very different ways, as you could imagine. If you didn't know, you're about to find out. India is a pretty big country. If we superimposed it on the U.S., you'd see it would start all the way from Winnipeg, Canada, just over the border there from North Dakota, all the way down to past, was it Montpateros, looks like Mexico. And east to west, we're talking Denver to D.C. Got that weird little extension here. Even without the extension, put you over there near Nashville somewhere. So yeah, it's a pretty big country. Always has been, always will be. In fact, it's going to have the largest population in the planet, I think, later this decade or early 2030s if it hasn't gotten there already. Yes, even going to surpass China. Now, when you think about the American Revolution and India's independence, two things come to mind. One is combat versus peaceful, yeah. But the reason why the American Revolution turned into a war and India did not was, I think, a lot to do with the leadership. Plus, I think the British had the example of the American Revolution and didn't want to, run into that again, especially when the country's even bigger. George Washington was a general. He's going to think things in military terms. He was actually a very loyal British subject. He'd fought in the 7 Years' War, did a pretty good job, except for that Fort Necessity thing. And Gandhi, yeah, I don't think he ever saw himself as a British subject. I mean, he might have said it just to avoid taxes or something. But yeah, that guy he was into Indian Revolution from day one. I mean, he was going to find some way to pull India out of the British orbit. So even though we, both had the same opponent, the British, U.S. and India went about achieving independence in many different ways. Hey, support of the people. Remember, talked about revolutions like, I don't know, a million years ago on some other episode as one of the early ones, second or third or something like that. Nonetheless, support of the people is what you need for any kind of revolution or a movement. Now, over here in the States, when the American Revolution was starting to, gain some steam, we had combat already at, Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill. The support for American independence was kind of a New England thing in the beginning. Yeah, the further south you went, the more loyalists you were getting into. So New England, more like Boston actually, was kind of where the revolution started. The middle states there, including PA, New York, Jersey, kind of hit and miss depending where you are. And the southern colonies, a lot of loyalists down there because I guess it's just so far away, didn't really think about it. But at the same time, they're looking up at Boston. They're like, if they could do it to Boston, they can do it to us. But there were a lot of loyalists in the South until, Cornwallis showed up and started burning down their farms and everything. Then all of a sudden they were on board, right? Now, in India, it wasn't really a political or even economic divide. In India, when you had to talk about support of the people, it came down to religion. And the two biggest religions are Hinduism, here in orange, and Islam in green. And Islam are, on separate sides of the country. This is a division the British used to divide India and maintain control. Remember the old Roman thing, divide and conquer? British are pretty good at it too. Didn't really use it much over here because it's a different situation, kind of same religion and same basic sort of culture. Whereas over here in India, yeah, vastly different religions, vastly different cultures. The one thing that could unite them was get the British out of here. And that's kind of what they ended up doing with the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League, both joining forces with the Lucknow Pact. So once they overcame the religious divisions, suddenly we've got a united front. Once the British leave, everything falls apart. But let's try to get the independence first. Nope, I didn't make a mistake. Nope, that's what I meant. I meant to put that map in there because what's the second thing you need for revolution? You need sanctuary. Of course, this is more of a military thing, which might not apply so much to India. Now, over there in the U.S., if they need a sanctuary, if they're fighting with the British, and believe me, they tried to do it peacefully at first. George III wasn't going for it. Well, once that happened, they had an army. All you had to do is basically go inland quite a bit. You got a sanctuary to rest, retrain, and get new weapons and everything. India, if this turns into a guerrilla war, you're not going to subdue this place. I mean, look, it's just way too big. India, a lot of jungles and rivers. It's not really the kind of place that lends itself to guerrilla wars. It's more of a mass uprising kind of thing. In fact, they had a mass uprising in 1857, a Sepoy revolt, where the British, they regained control of the place, but it wasn't easy. Sepoys were Indian soldiers working for the British, and the British started handing out weapons that were coated in pig fat, which, with Islam and Hinduism, that's a big no-no because it comes from a cow. It's supposed to be a holy animal. And of course, this British disregard for Indian culture led to a huge revolt in 1857. The British got a handle on it, but it's not something you want to go through again. So, like I said, India doesn't really seem to lend itself to guerrilla warfare, but mass uprisings, oh yeah, they can do that, no problem. Lots of people. Now, third thing you need is help from the outside. The U.S. got help from the outside. France, always happy to kick Britain right where it hurts. They showed up with no problem coming across the Atlantic with naval support and gunpowder and people like Lafayette and actual soldiers. They intervened, no problem. Spain hopped in it too, not because they liked us. They tried to get Florida back, which they succeeded. The Netherlands joined in as well. The Dutch were there just to take shots at the British, come up the Thames River and fling a few shots into London because it's a fun thing to do. So we had help from the outside and all of that together, support, sanctuary, help from the outside, and guess what? Got an independent country. Now, India, because it's more of a civil movement, civil disobedience movement, didn't really get help from the outside, but they did have support from the outside. A lot of people in Great Britain kind of wondering, should they have really done what they did in India? And the British Labour Party, led by, Attlee here, Clement Attlee, was actually in favor of Indian independence. And after the Second World War, Britain was very weak, spread out all over the place. If there was another Sepoy revolt in India in 1947, there's no way the British would have been able to hold on to it. Nonetheless, Attlee was actually in favor of Indian independence, so there's your support from the outside. Now, here's something I wanted to talk about. Now, the American Revolution. They tried to do it peacefully. George III's not doing it, so we've got a war from 1775 to 1783. And it's almost a conventional war. It came pretty close to looking like a war you'd fight in Europe because, George Washington's trained by the British. So they fought it out, and the U.S. is going to win. But, they went toe-to-toe for a very long time. The British don't like letting stuff go. This guy decided it was over, apparently. Yeah, that's enough of that, right? Now, India, as we know, it's a peaceful civil disobedience sort of movement. The Salt March, refusing to comply with the British demands and, things like that. The British overreacted a couple times at a massacre back in 1919, which really bad press back in Britain. So that the British support for Indian independence. But yeah, after the Second World War, the British are weak. They're spread out all their colonies after fighting Germany 2 times, and they started to have some rioting in Britain. I mean, it's not in Britain, in India. They even had a mutiny, the Indian sailors in the British Navy over there. And I think Gandhi was having trouble keeping his people in control, and the British, of course, are losing control all over the place. So, like I said, if there's another Sepoy revolt, they're not going to hang on to India. So they decided to get out on good terms. In fact, they just declared India to be independent on August the 14th at midnight, and at 12:01, Pakistan became an independent country. And they said, bye, see you later. Kind of a strange way to end it, but it worked, didn't it? So same result. Not quite as dramatic, but they got there. And the revolution had the big siege at Yorktown, forcing a surrender. Cornwallis couldn't even come out to hand out his sword. India, Britain decided, yep, that's cool, pass the act, and we're out of here. So not as dramatic, but same result. Now, I am still doing my Western Interior Seaway fascination right now. And I was thinking about the Monument Rocks of Kansas. Yeah, because Kansas is part of the Western Interior Seaway. And we know this because you find fossils, you can look at the place, it's really flat. And look at this, Monument Rocks. These are sedimentary and chalk, what you find at the bottom of the ocean. This is what you see above the ground. You know it's all down under here somewhere. So you know there's got to be tons of fossils all over the place. Map of the interior Western Seaway here. The Western Kansas underwater. Here's North Dakota. Here's Pittsburgh, nowhere near it. But you can tell that there's going to be fossils all over the place. Why? 30 million years of fossils, man. It was underwater that long. So you know there's going to be tons of fossils. And this is stuff above the ground. Here's one of those monument rocks from a distance. Here's a car. You can see this. 30 million years of fossils. So they're going to find all sorts of really cool stuff. You remember, there's a ton of predators in the Western Interior Seaway. It's kind of a shallow sea, 2,500 feet or so. And there's a ton of meat eaters running around. And you're wondering why they don't destroy each other. Remember, I talked about predation niches and stuff like that last time. But, you know, you don't think they fight each other on occasion? Yeah, it's a pretty wild place, man. I mean, you're not even sure why you even bother with non-carnivores over here in the ocean. I mean, these things are all over the place. And Tylosaurus might be the top predator, but yeah, it doesn't keep another Tylosaurus coming from after you or getting overwhelmed here by sheer numbers. Crotexorhina here. This guy doesn't look too interested. I don't know. I think he's headed off to get a pizza someplace. I don't know. And this guy grabbed his food. He's taken off, and you know he's enjoying it. So looks kind of like an all-you-can-eat buffet in Sandusky someplace. Yeah, I went to one of those. I'm lucky I didn't lose a couple fingers, man. Bunch of Browns fans. What do you expect? Here's a cool fossil they found, right? They call it the fish within a fish, right? He can keep messing this guy's name up there. Ziphanctus. Yeah, I misspelled that again. Anyway, you know who he is. There he is. Ziphanctinus. There we are. Swallowed a fish. How do we know? Because there it is. Fish within a fish. All right, swallowed it and died immediately afterwards. Must have ruptured an organ or something over here. Like I said, you go to the buffet, you got to slow down. Chew your food, man. It's not going anywhere, we hope. So, fish within a fish. Some other cool fossils, right? Right, got this fish again. Find that fossils all over the place. Here's a tylosaur. They found it almost complete. They nicknamed it Bruce, and now it's the official fossil of Kansas. So, Kansas got something going on for it. Tylosaurs and the Kansas City Chiefs. We can keep the tylosaurs. We got to find a way to bring down the Kansas City Chiefs. And you know what people really like? They like shells. People love fossilized shells. I don't get it, personally. I mean, all finds are good finds. It's still a fossil. But, you know, I'm not excited by shells or MPA. They like plant fossils for some reason. But they do have value. I mean, it still shows you life, you know, way back then. But it's also great for trading stuff, too. Because guys who like shells, oh, they're happy to give you 2, 3 shark teeth or bones for a couple of shells. So, lots of value in different ways. That was a rough week for Pittsburgh sports, man. We get back from North Dakota. I missed watching Pittsburgh lose to Dallas. Of all teams, Dallas. I had the game recorded, decided to watch the kickoff, and then I erased the whole thing. The Penguins got demolished 6-0 on opening day at home by the New York Rangers. But things are looking up. We did defeat Detroit last night 6-3, so keep the optimism. Steelers are headed off to Vegas. We're 3-2, still in first place, though we are tied with the Ravens. The Raiders are 2-3, so not really something to be despised. You take everybody seriously. I think I've shouted that lesson out to you over and over. How's this game going to turn out? Of course, I think the Steelers are going to win. I'm always going to say that. It's an interesting stadium, though, they're playing in. We played here last year and won, so it's not exactly, alien territory here. They call us the Death Star, Allegiant Stadium. Kind of has that look about it. There's the MGM Hotel. Mrs. H and I stayed there one time, long before the Raiders came along. Here's what the stadium looks like from the inside. I like mixed feelings about it. You know, I don't like domes other than the Fargo Dome. And at least they're letting in some light. We got this big window, and this thing lets in light, so it's not too bad. And at least they're playing on a grass field, all right? I can't hold that against them. I can hold other things against them. But, you know, they are playing on a grass field. But at the end of the day, hey, Pittsburgh, let's get the win. Justin Fields played great in a loss. A couple interceptions didn't help. But once you decide who you're throwing to, remember the guy in the white jersey. We can win this game. Go to 4-2 and continue on our inevitable march to the Super Bowl, which is down in New Orleans, which is a dome. So clearly we're going to win that one too. You guys have yourself a fantastic day. Don't forget to do something for our fellow humans down there in Florida, Georgia, West NC, and East Tennessee. Whatever you can, every little bit helps. And hey, you guys have yourself a great day. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Das vidanya.